Hello and welcome to this presentation on the structured walkthrough process. Structured walkthroughs are very helpful to discovering problems early on. They are a team type of effort. This is not something which you do as an individual. So it's helpful if there are other students that you're working with. Nevertheless, even if there are no other students or fellow programmers near you, it is still useful to understand the structured walkthrough process so that when you are working in a large company on a large project with hundreds of different programs being written, all having to connect and communicate with each other, you'll know how to run a structured walkthrough, or at least how to participate in a structured walkthrough. My name is Mary Abdill, and I will be your instructor. If you have any questions about any of the information covered in this presentation, please use the question and comment box. Our topics are: what is a structured walkthrough? How do we run it? What are the steps? What are the methods? How do we make it work? And what are the benefits? A structured walkthrough course could actually be a full day or a full 2 days, so I'm just giving you some of the highlights. But I think it will be rather useful for you. A structured walkthrough is a name coined by IBM for a series of reviews that are conducted during the design phase, the programming phase, and the testing phases. If you're doing maintenance, you go through all of these processes as well in terms of looking at what you are changing in the code that you are maintaining. A structured walkthrough is not just a presentation. You are not just presenting what you are doing, presenting your design, presenting your code, presenting your test data and your test plans. It's also not a teaching process. However, a byproduct of structured walkthroughs is the presentation and the learning by others. So those are not part of it, but they are not the purpose. The central purpose of the structured walkthrough is to review your code and look for problems. Structured walkthrough, it is a process, or sometimes people call it a tool or an instrument, to analyze the design of a system and to uncover your logic errors and your design errors early on so that they can be fixed and they don't create problems that will take much longer to fix. It is never for employee evaluation. That is, your boss should not be in the room during the structured walkthrough. You should not be having any of your subordinates in the room during a structured walkthrough. It is for peers. It is for product review. It is to go through opening the channels of communication with people feeling non-competitive and non-defensive. It is to look for problems so that everyone will benefit. It is a meeting of peers, and the idea is to review each other's work with the idea that you are looking for problems that will impact everyone, not just the person involved, but everyone. It is also not the place where you fix the problems. It is simply to make a note of what the problems are, or concerns, or mismatches. And sometimes it's just a matter of miscommunication. One person thinks that the data is this layout, and another person thinks the data is that layout. And if you have a misunderstanding of what the layout of the data is, something's not going to work. One person may give the data in one way, and the receiving program expects it in a different way. So it covers problems that are omissions in terms of design that everyone may be failing from. So it's not necessarily that one person made a mistake. It's something didn't get communicated along the way. Let's look at the method. All right, you've decided you want to do a structured walkthrough. You need to choose what materials you want to have reviewed. That is, do you have a design, let's say use cases, or UML code, or some sort of functional decomposition, or some sort of other design that you have laid out, a systems flowchart that you want to have reviewed? Is it your code that you want to have reviewed? Is it your test plans and test data that you want to have reviewed? That sort of thing. You can make a slide deck if you want. You can go to a room and write everything you want on whiteboards, set up diagrams. In the old days, we set up easel charts, make photocopies of things so that everyone has the same copy. Distribute this material early, before the meeting. You also want to select your attendees. You want to select people who have a vested interest in your program working. If they don't necessarily have a vested interest in your program working, they might not put the same amount of effort into this. But if their programs will only work if your programs work, then it is to your benefit to select these people. There shouldn't be more than about 3 or 4 people. You don't want to create huge discussions. But you want people who care that your code works, particularly because it will impact their code. You hand out the material to your attendees before the meeting, maybe a couple days, to give them a chance to look at the material. They might not have much time to look at it in detail, but at least they have some idea of what's going on, and they can take a quick look and look up things, bring their own programs to make sure that things are going to compare correctly. Set a time and place. A room that has a door on it is a good thing. You don't want to do it in a cubicle, because too many people might walk by. You may make a lot of racket and other people will be hearing it. So you want to set the time and place and have it be in a separate room, and maximum 30 to 45 minutes. You also want to choose a recorder person. That person will be recording everything that goes on in the meeting that is important to be changed. In other words, you're going to make a list of changes that you will need to make to your program. It's really not the changes so much, but it's a list of the problems or things that need to be researched. Because you're not going to be giving fixes, you're simply listing, categorizing, making a chart of recording the problems or potential problems that you have with whatever you have being reviewed. All right, so now we have the meeting. During the meeting, all the attendees will look at all the materials, and they'll look for errors, and they'll look for omissions, and they'll look for confusions, and they'll look for things that don't match with what they understand. At the end of the meeting, the attendees evaluate the product, and they say, is the product fixable with minor changes? Is it fixable with major changes? Does it have to have a complete redo? Should there be another structured walkthrough after the person responsible has made whatever corrections they deem necessary? So at the end of the meeting, it's determined whether another structured walkthrough is necessary. Usually not. Usually they're minor changes. The person can make their changes, and everyone is happy. You correct your errors on your own time. It's too easy during one of these meetings for everyone to start saying, oh, if you did this, it would fix it. If you moved this piece of code there, if you did that. No. You correct the errors on your own time. You simply note that there's a problem. For example, we want 50 lines on a page. Someone notes that you've got 51 lines on a page, or at least that's what it looks like. So then you will have to fix it and figure out how to get it down to 50 lines per page on your reports. Or an error could be that you forgot to test for some validation routine, and you forgot to make sure that some amount has to be in a range from 100 to 1,000. So someone notes that you need to add that validation. But they don't tell you how to do it, and they don't tell you where to do it. You need to do that on your own time. And if necessary, another walkthrough date is set, and you repeat the walkthroughs until the desired product is achieved, until everyone is satisfied. So what are the major benefits of working with structured walkthroughs. The biggest benefit is that you have a module that works because it's not just one pair of eyes looking at it, but it's 4 or 5 pairs of eyes looking at the code and deciding whether it's going to work. It's a team activity. Therefore, it is a learning experience for everyone. You might see a technique that the other programmer is using if you are just an attendee at one of these structured walkthroughs, and you say, gee, that's a neat way to do things. So you'll learn how other people are doing things because you're looking at their code. It's also a leveler because everyone has their work reviewed. No one is exempt. You have your work reviewed by your teammates. Your teammates each have their work reviewed by you and the rest of the teammates. So everyone is subject to having their work reviewed. However, it's not being reviewed by your boss. That's very important. Word does not go back to your boss that says, hey, your work didn't look very good and so-and-so's work looked great. That's not the idea of a structured walkthrough. Because everyone is sharing in a non-critical way, it is truly a way to keep communication channels open. And you open up discussion about other things with your teammates that you might not have if you hadn't actually been meeting with them in all of these different structured walkthroughs. So a major benefit is communication channels are kept open among the people who need to be communicating with each other because you're all working on the same huge application and there are hundreds of programs involved with this application. It also results in a clarification of the project requirements because someone will say, well, this should be such, and someone else will say, no, it shouldn't. It should be something else. And so people get a better understanding because there's a discussion that goes on to clarify what the different data is and what the different expected outputs are. Normally, you would have a workshop at this point in this class. However, I have no formal exercises for this module. If you are with a group of students, or you are working on a project right now with fellow employees, why don't you try leading some structured walkthroughs with each other and participating in some structured walkthroughs with each other. So you would be both a leader and a participant in different structured walkthroughs. And at the end of each one, and this is just for the class purposes, ask everyone if they felt at ease with the process. Ask them if there were any problems that were discovered that probably wouldn't have been discovered right away if the person was on their own. And in general, was the structured walkthrough useful? Also, were you able to keep the entire process to under an hour, preferably to a half hour or less? You definitely don't want to go over 45 minutes. And here's another little tip. Let's say people are not able to find the time to come to your structured walkthrough that you're leading. Well, you can tempt them, and the best way to tempt them is with food. Bring cookies or donuts or chips and dip or something that they might find more interesting perhaps than doing a structured walkthrough. And this way it makes it more of a friendly thing. Food is always a great leveler, and it's always a great social smoothing agent. So people will talk more easily when they're eating food. It's kind of like family. So consider not something expensive, but a little bit of food might help. This completes the module on structured walkthrough. If you have any questions about any of the information covered in this presentation, please use the question and comment box. There is a lot more to structured walkthrough than I just indicated because it's really important for a teacher to watch the process going on so that the teacher can say, you know, you said you were feeling comfortable, but you never said anything, so I wonder if you were really comfortable. You know, it helps to have someone who knows how the process works to analyze it. So I would like you to try it, and I would like you not to be too critical with it. And good luck with it. It's really a great process. Again, if you have any questions about any of the information covered, use the question and comment box, and Thank you for joining me.